on April 10th, I bought 6 mean hives, and I went and grafted queens and split those 6, and then my end results were I had 20 hives. Three empties. I'm tickled. I am so tickled. All right, well, so far so good. Like a lot of you, I would really like to make a living from home. I've been hobby beekeeping for several years, or at least bee having, because all my bees died on me. I don't have a lot of money to start a bee business, but I thought this is the year to take it serious. So I'm just working part-time, and on April 10th I bought 6 hives, and they were full of brood, so I knew I could split them almost right away. Except they were very hot hives and tried to eat me alive. But thankfully, a friend of mine had a very gentle hive of bees that made lots of honey, so he let me borrow that hive to graft queens out of. I'd only grafted queens like 3 times before with very limited success. Limited to no success. But I thought I'd go ahead and graft some queens, so I watched a Bob Binney video a dozen times and tried to do it just like he did, and had some really good success. I had over 40 queens out of 45 grafts. So I went ahead and split my hives. There was 50 frames of brood in them, so I split them into 24 hives. And the rest of the queens I went ahead or the queen cells, I gave to my friend that I borrowed that hive from. So here we are, 6 weeks later, and things aren't going as good as I thought they were. So it's been almost 7 weeks since I made the splits. Today is June 14th. So 2 weeks ago, on week 5, the bottom boxes, these are all double nukes, and the bottom boxes were full. And so I added a second box on most of them. You can see these little half boxes that I put on them. So then when I came back on week 6, I was expecting, brood and have, the bees being up in those second boxes, and they had the bottom ones so packed out. But they weren't. Maybe it was wishful thinking, but originally I thought at week 7, after making, dropping those queen cells in there, that they'd all be bursting at the seams, and I'd be splitting them all up again this weekend, or even last weekend. So what I'm going to be doing today is, we'll go check, see what they're doing in those second boxes, and then like 4 of these, only a queen came back on one side, but not the other, but there's quite a few swarm cells, so I'm going to work on that and put a cell in each of those halves and put the divider back in. Okay, so I'm going to start off first with this one hive that was actually doing a little bit in their second box. Drawing just a smidge of comb. Not a lot, but that was not there 3 days ago. They've got this completely full of brood. There's a bunch of real young brood, I guess it'd be called milk brood. And then they around in here, and they got all this honey or syrup around the outside. This looks like it's fresh comb, and it's full of eggs and syrup. And this is fresh comb, completely full of eggs, maybe a little bit of syrup. So these guys are doing great. A little bit of cat brood in this one. I see a cell down here, completely dry. I'm gonna go ahead and get down in the bottom, see what we got down there. Okay, it looks like I dropped a foundation in the bottom of this one. I don't think I did that on any of the others, so maybe I did though. Problem with putting 5 frames in the bottom. With that divider, it's really tight. So they haven't hardly touched this foundation. So let me go ahead and drop that down in the middle of them, I think. There's a queen right there. And these bees are starting to get ticked off. In my last video or two, people were saying that it's these gloves. I need to get different gloves, but I'm sure they're not, because I borrowed a friend's gloves and he had beekeeping gloves and they didn't make a bit of difference. I've got, well, and he's using another kind of gloves. I was using some those rubber gloves, whatever they're called, disposable gloves. Those didn't make a difference. These are just mean bees. That's all there's to it. They're getting a lot better though with their new queens, but like 1,000 times better. Through the rest of these 24 hives, and this first one was an exception, none of the others, even after 7 weeks, had even started touching that second box. So we'll come back in a couple more weeks and see how they're doing. If I'm going to make as many bees as I was hoping to, I need to get to splitting these things. And this is 2 weeks later. Today is June 28th, and it is getting late. I have not split my hives yet again the second time. I went through wherever you see a rock there, and the halves where the queen hadn't come back on the first round, I went and put a queen cell in each one, swarm cells, 2 weeks ago, so I'm not going to check those yet. So what I'm going to do today is I'm just going to go through. They were not drawing comb out 2 weeks ago, and so now I've fed them sugar syrup. I took their jars off right now. My wife is filling them up. But I think my foundation is like 3 years old, and I think that wax maybe just be too dry, and they're just not drawing it out good. So we're gonna see how they're drawing it out. If they're not drawing it out good, then I'm gonna try something else. But regardless, I am going to graft queens today and get the next split on the road, because I'm just running out of time, and I thought I would already be making my third round of splits by now, and here I'm not even my second. So let's get into these hives and just see what they're looking like, seeing if they're drawing out their foundation. What I was waiting on is for them to draw out their second boxes of foundation before I make my splits. All right, to start with, I'm gonna go to this end one. This is about the average size one. There's a couple in here that are a little smaller than this, and a couple that are a little bigger, so I thought I'd show an average size. I think this may be the one we went through 2 weeks ago as well. The hive tool I'm using I got free at the Hive Life show conference. I don't know if you guys go or not, but this one's from Hilco, and I don't remember where I think I got like 2 or 3 free ones this past year. So even if you go not planning to buy something, hey, you still get free. Absolutely nothing. This foundation's been in there for 3 weeks. Could be my fault too. I was looking into it, and I guess I should be putting my foundations down in the bottom between brood. Now I had moved brood up into this box, this frame right here, but they starting to put a little nectar in there, or sugar syrup. Maybe this one is smaller than the others. This hive seems really tiny. Woo! Just full of sugar syrup or nectar. I'm just very disappointed. I thought by this time that my hives would be absolutely jamming. This is all full of milk brood, but they're just not very big. Of course, there's a lot of foragers out right now. And the queen's got a nice pattern. There's the queen right there. I just don't know. The next frame looks just as good as this one, but I'm gonna leave it there. So I basically checkerboarded this, and I don't remember what is her channel name? Beefit? Beekeeping? I don't know, something like that. and that's what she showed, to put it down in between the brood. And I did notice that on one of the other hives, I put the foundation up between honey frames, and they drew it out. The existing comb drew it out into those foundations and didn't draw out the foundation. Once I'm gonna check this other side here, and then I'll go and show you guys the 6 original hives, how they're looking. I mean, I guess it's still not too bad to think that these all came out of the 6 hives. Just not as far along as I thought it would be. As you can tell, these are a lot calmer than they were in that first video. Now, a couple of these hives in here are still really hot. I need to start marking them when I come across them and requeen them. And this one was a brood frame that I pulled up, and it's still a brood frame. Got some milk brood in it. And they've got brood in this frame still. Oh, here's a queen. You guys know what a queen looks like. But I see something not cool. And that's this. It's a little bit of brown comb on there. And this is just not good. Not good at all. I thought if I dumped the feed to them that maybe they would do it right. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop one of these frames right between these 2 brood frames. And if they're not doing this within a week, I guess I'll have to go buy some waxed. Add some wax on these things. So I was gonna try to do this outfit like 3 years ago, and I bought 1,000 frames. I didn't know that it can dry out, get kind of messed up over the years, you know, when it dries out. And 3 years ago, they drew it out beautifully in the few hives that I had. It looks like she's got a pretty decent brood pattern as well. Yep, she's got one good frame of brood up top. So she's got at least 6 frames of brood, not all capped. And this one had about 5. Well, these bees are getting a little excited here. Where's that foundation? I'm gonna drop this foundation down between these. Well, I'm not gonna go through any more on camera right now. But they're averaging about 5 to 6 frames of bees per hive. Not bees, brood. And out of 21 hives, the others are still too small. They requeen themselves and whatnot. Yeah, these bees are still a little hot. None of them have tried stinging my clothes yet, but anyway. So I'm just gonna keep dumping the food to these bees, and I'm gonna put their foundation down between the brood comb, and hopefully they'll draw it out. I'm up here at my house, behind my house here. These are the 6 original hives, not in the 6 original boxes. I got them in the same split boxes as the others. And there's the original boxes. I bought them as singles, so the ones that are colored. And you can see there it says Pal's Apiaries. That's where I got them. It's a Florida company, but I got them here in Tennessee. He's a commercial beekeeper. So when I made the original splits, all the splits, I gave them 3 frames 2 frames of brood and 1 frame of food, and or most of them had a frame of food. And these I left with hardly any brood, but with the original queen. And at first it seemed like the others, since their brood was hatching out, they passed these up real quick. But it didn't take long, and these are all caught up and past the others. So I'm going to show you what they're looking like. Here, I'll show you closer. I think I put the foundation in the bottom in these, so we'll see how they pulled them out. But you can see there's white, fresh wax between these frames. One thing I'm curious about, when you're using these split hives, these 4 frames do not fill up, and it was a big gap here. And one of my other hives grew a bunch of comb in here, like this one's got a bit of comb. So I didn't have that problem before, they're just now getting big enough to cause a problem. But I'm wondering, do I just space them evenly? I don't know, I'm gonna try that. I mean, that's gotta be the method, because Michael Palmer does this method. They're just capping this brood, but it's a full frame of brood with syrup or honey out around the edges. Same on this side. Like I said, these have bounced back, and most of them are doing great. The next one over there, one of them went queenless last time I checked them. So that one probably ain't doing too great. Look at this. Some of these may have requeened. I know at least one did. And this is full of eggs on this side. But man, that's a block right there. Brick layer. The next one's a brick. I'll go ahead and pull it out and show you guys. This is fresh comb. This is one of the, I think this is one of the foundations I put in. Looks fresh enough. And another brick. Honey on that side. This one's definitely ready for a 3rd box and can be split out of several times. I mean, once you have drawn comb, you can do it this way, I'm sure. That might be the trick. You have to have drawn comb for these top boxes. Got a bunch of bee bread there, brood on that side. And here's the foundation. I just moved it down last week. And they're drawing a little bit of wonky stuff out there. A little bit on that side. Not good. Drawing a little bit on that. Well, let's see how this next one is doing. Actually, after I went off camera with you guys on those last hives, I went through them, and a couple of them actually did draw out their foundation, and some even had brood in them. This one I've actually got 3 boxes on it. This top one's a box of bees. But I think this was the middle one, and I put the fresh box under there, so we'll see. Now this was a frame of foundation, and they're just not pulling it out very nice, but it is drawn out with brood in it. here with another foundation. That's a lot better. Much better. It's full of eggs and brood. Oh, last week I made 2 foundations next to each other, and they had comb, like burr comb in between it, and I scraped it out. Now they're rebuilding it. I don't know if they'll do it correctly or not. I think they did it on both. Yeah, they did a little bit on both sides. So this is where I scraped it out. Well, I went through the rest of these hives, and I am tickled with how strong these original 6 hives are again. These are about how I thought my splits would be by now, but hey guys, I'm new at this. I'm probably expecting way too much out of my bees, and they're just right where they're supposed to be. So I'm gonna go ahead and put some syrup on these guys, which I've been giving all my colonies 1 quart of syrup a week, trickle feeding them in these jars. And then next week I'll come back and split these bees to pieces. If you guys watched my first video, you'll remember I had some awesome luck getting these queens grafted, so I'm doing this again. So I went and put all comb and food in the bottom. There must not be a pollen flow right now because there's very little pollen, so I'll put a patty in there. I caught the queen and put her in one of these little queen cages. So now I'm going to go ahead and graft, put the grass in there, put a double screen board in, and go from there. The cell builders are over there, and I'm just going to come over here to the truck so I can sit down. This isn't a how-to video. You guys saw me kind of how I did it last time, so just going to quickly. It's not like I'm a professional anyway. Hardly ever grafted before. So usually what I do is I have a wet rag to put over it, but it's very humid today, so it'll probably be fine. Well, I actually got a different frame because the other one that I had pulled out didn't have enough tiny larvae in it. So this larva that you're looking for is actually almost smaller than the egg. Again, it's so tiny. That's why it's not easy. So this is not a how-to video because I'm no professional, but if you want to see how to graft, Cayman Reynolds has a bunch of great videos on it. So I just use a Chinese grafting tool, cut this little flexible piece of plastic on it, and then a plunger to slide it off that plastic once you get it where you want it to go. Anyway, I'm gonna get to it and see how long this takes me. Well, it only took me a little over 20 minutes this time. Pollen patties are getting kind of old. They expire, I think, this month. I want to go ahead and get them used up. This is a homemade double screen board. Put it up top. There's no rim to feed it, so I pulled the paper off so they can really get to it at the bottom. There's going to be a lot of bees, so they'll get to it before the hive beetles do, I think. Put the queen safely in her cup. And she was out of there like a rocket. I opened it and she went straight down. She's been in there for an hour probably. Well, this is an exciting day. Finally gonna make my splits. I'm getting everything loaded up here, ready to make my splits. And I'm doing something a little different. If you remember last time I cut 1/4-inch grooves and split 1/4-inch plywood down, which was nice because then I could just pull it out and have one solid box. But when I did that, it made cuts in my handles, so then I had big holes in each end of my handle. And I had to buy the 1/4-inch plywood. So I get all these flooring cutoffs that are right at 9 inches, just a touch over some of them, so I just rip them down. Then run a little strip, because this is 5/8 plywood, and it works out perfectly. Well, I made them good and tight, but anyway, you get the picture. So I tap them down in there with a hammer, then I pre-drill some holes and zip some screws in there. And I got me a nice solid divider, because that 1/4-inch plywood was often bowed. And so when I had a box sitting on one side, when I took one box off to check, and there was like a gap and the bees were going back and forth. And I doubt a queen would, if there'd be much of a chance of a queen slipping over that quick, but I just like this nice solid barrier better. So, and this is what I'm doing for my bottom boards. I got a lot of these pressure treated plywood siding window cutouts from a barn shop down the road. And then these strips are strips of siding from the barn shop I work at. These are for painted, and this is treated for being stained. And it works out good. They get a little bit bowed, but I figure the pressure pushing down will be great and flatten it out. One thing I didn't do on my other bottom boards, on my very first splits, I didn't drill a hole. And so the water wants to sit in one side or the other. Hasn't seemed to be much of a problem, but I think the drain holes are a good idea. And some of you have been wondering about my wood shop. Well, I don't have a shop. I just kind of set up a little area here in my father-in-law's shop, using up his space. And it's a mess right now. So I got this radial arm saw for like 15 bucks at an auction a couple years ago. I just built this workbench here. And that's all the wood shop I have. When I need a table saw right now, I'm just running down to where I work, and I'm allowed to use that table saw. So that's what my wood shop is. Not much to look at. Well, before we go making the splits, let's go look at the queen cells and see how many cells we got. So I'm doing Bob Benny's method for a queenless starter and queen right finisher. And if you remember the last time I was in this hive, I had a double screen board between the two and had the queen up top and had the cells down below. Then Bob comes back 2 or 3 days later and flips them around and puts not a double screen board, a queen excluder between them. He usually does it at 2 or 3 days, but I couldn't get to it till day 5. And that's what my question is about. At day 5, I think it's on day 6 after the larva hatches from the eggs that the cups get capped. Well, most of my cups, queen cups, were already capped on day 5. Not all of them, but most of them. So I didn't know if any of you have experience. Is that a problem? Like, did I graft too old a larva? I don't know. I tried. I thought they were all young enough, but I don't know. So now, and they did have a good take. So let's go and check the cells and see if there's still a good amount of them left. Hive beetle larva in here. Quite a bit of it, actually. So I'm gonna go ahead and just throw this over to the chickens. Man, these look like some stumpy cells. Really stumpy cells. Huh. Maybe they're not. I don't know. Maybe there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 empties out of 45. So it's not as good as last time. Are those stumpy, or am I just... Those are stumpy. I mean, the cell looks stumpy. This is one of the stumpiest cells, but the queen looks full size. Well, I still got a lot to learn about making queens, but I'm gonna go ahead and use these cells, and I got splits to make. I'm down here in a lean-to that I built off my father-in-law's shop, getting some bottom boards, and this is how I'm saving tons of money. Bottom boards. These are, I got like 50 these nuke boxes that go on top. And like 3 years ago, I bought 100 deeps and assembled and painted them, glued them myself, and bought the frames for them because I thought I was going to be doing this a while ago. I'm so glad I did that because now my money kind of rebuilt a little bit. So now if I need to buy more frames, I can. But I'm not planning to buy any new boxes, hopefully for a couple of years. I'm just going to keep, once I run out of those for doubles, I'll just put doubles of these on the bottom board or make them separate bottom boards because these are all out of scrap from work. I'm over here at my house and I don't really want these here. These are the ones that were so mean the first video. They're not that mean anymore. I can mow up to them as long as I keep moving. But I just don't want the bees right here in the yard where we're always working because people don't feel too comfortable with them here. So I'm gonna bust these all to pieces, except for that one. I might take some brood out of that one, but I'm gonna put excluder on there and put some supers on there because our sourwood's in full bloom. And I'm gonna see if I can make some sourwood honey. Then the one with the rock there, the other one with the rock right there, when I checked them, they were queenless, but I'll just bust it to pieces and use the resources out of it. All right, I'm gonna start with the one that was queenless 3 weeks ago. Since these bees are probably all foragers by now, they're all gonna fly back, but there won't be a hive to fly back to, which sucks. That's why I'm gonna leave one. I'm hoping they all fly back to that one and boost it. There's just a little bit of brood. Old cat brood. A nice heavy frame of food. Well, out of that one double colony, you know, out of the one that had a queen in it, only had like 8 frames of good brood. So I put 2 frames of brood a piece, put the queen in this one, and gave them each 2 good frames of brood and a frame of food and a comb. And so I got 4 out of that. Basically 4 out of that one. I still got the food frames, extra food frames over there. I was gonna split that one now with the one that's queenless, but I think I'll just combine them and make them my honey colony because I think all the foragers will drift into that one since it's right in the middle. I'll just split this one because this one I know is strong and I can get a bunch of splits out of it. Well, here's the last 6. I ended up pulling 18 splits off of these. And I put in 2 frames of brood in each one. 1 good frame and 1 partial. Some of them had 2 good frames. And I'm leaving this one. I'm going to pull the divider out of it so all the foragers could go back. And they did not start getting upset like this until, you know, now that all these foragers are confused and are buzzing around me. They're not really trying to sting me or anything. They might be if I wouldn't have gear on, but they're just confused. So actually those, you know, having 16, that's, no, 3, 6, 9, 18. 18 hives that I pulled out of here. They each had 2, so that's 36 frames of brood. Then I left 4 in that one. So actually 40 frames of brood. I know they weren't all full, but out of just 4 hives, because 2 of these were queenless. So that's not too bad. Well, this is the next day. I just went and dropped the cells in there and put sugar syrup on them. I'm just using, someone had given me a bunch of quart jars several years ago. I got these white plastic lids off of Amazon, and I just drilled 4 holes in there. And I've been feeding them 1 quart a week, just trickle feeding them. So I ended up making 30 splits. There's, you know, obviously 2 a piece. And I'm getting a pretty good line of them now. I'm pretty excited. So now I just come back in a couple weeks. This is Saturday and they should be hatching on Tuesday. So I'll come back in a couple weeks after that. I'll keep feeding them and see how many queens we got. It had been looking pretty bad, I thought, you know, didn't know if I'm gonna be able to make many splits, but I'm getting excited again. So I could have made more splits. I just didn't want to knock down those too far because I want to be able to split from them again. So I should be able to do it again in about a month or maybe less. Just look at that. Oh, I want to show you this. These latex gloves are an absolute game changer. They stung it one time, one bee stung it, and it didn't even go through. Those are some heavy duty latex gloves, and they work great. And I think I'll be able to use them more than once because they're really thick. And the other thing that's a game changer, if you guys are new like me and not comfortable grabbing the queens, this is it's called a queen clip or queen catcher. I'll try to link it down in the description if I can find it. I got it from Man Lake, I think. And you just put it over the queen, you'll get like half a dozen or a dozen bees with it. Just put it over her and then just shut it. And it's got the little groove on the end so you don't accidentally pinch the queen, I guess. But it works great. So I just picked the queen off the comb and set her down in another part of the hive if I need to, or whatever I need to do with her. Works amazing. I put the frame with the queen cells in there. Then I just pulled a bar off and I just set them in the hive. Let me open one here. See the cell right there? I just set the cell right between two frames, and it works great. That's how I did it before. That's how Cayman Reynolds does it. Maybe that's how all people do these JZBZ cups, but it works really good. I put it, reason it was to the one side is because that's where the brood is. So all of these have at least 2 frames of brood. So out of the 30 splits I made, that's 60 frames of brood. It's a lot of extra brood, and then I still got 20 more hives. Just crazy how much you can grow, just 6 hives. Well, today is Sunday, July 23rd, and one thing I figured out is beekeeping is a lot of work. I just went through 50 hives checking for queens. It's not that it takes that long, it's just, man, it's back-breaking work. And these are just small hives, so that was easy to do. Isn't that pretty? Just a long line of beehives now, and each one of those are doubles. So, out of the, I think it was 28, I just counted them, or 25, somewhere around there. Out of those, all of them have laying queens in them, except for 4 of them. And out of those 4, 2 of them I had made them with open swarm cells, uncapped swarm cells. So they're probably a week behind. And the other 2, one had emergency cells, so they'll probably make their own queen. And the other one I dropped in some eggs just to make sure. So by the end of the week, I should have a total of 50 laying queens, maybe even 51 or 52, which is pretty awesome. And then these, yesterday I went and made 25 more splits. And I made them smaller this time. So far I've been making heavy splits, like 2 good frames of brood and a frame of food. And these, I did just 1 frame of brood, 1 frame of brood. It's the end of July, we get, I think tonight's supposed to get down to 60, which is about as cold as it'll get this time of year. And it usually won't even get that cold. So, I'm hoping for good success with these. Now, one thing, I didn't show you guys me grafting this time because I've showed you before. But I had a great take. And they were some of the best looking cells I had so far. Then when I went to get them, almost all of them, you can see have holes torn in the side. Like the bees just ripped them up, pulled them out of there. I don't know, I don't understand what does that. I'm sure one of you guys can help me out. So it turned out I only had like 17 cells. But thankfully, I had some of these hives let them get too strong and they had a bunch of swarm cells. So I was able to, well, not a bunch, but I was able to get, 8 or so of them out to put queen cells in some of my splits, which, as Bob Benny and everybody I've heard talk about it, Michael Palmer, they say swarm cells make the best queen cells. So I like trying to use a swarm cell whenever I can. I still need to get the feed on these. I'll do that yet this evening. Just look at this big line of hives. And you can see these were all 2 boxes high, and I took all the brood basically out of these. But now all the foragers are kind of packed into one little, half of a box. So they're all bearding on me. So I've been kind of concerned about the cells I'd made. I thought maybe they looked kind of small compared to maybe Cayman Reynolds queen cells or Bob Benny's. But man, these queens, I'll show you guys later. I didn't have time to video me making these splits, but they are bricklayers. What I heard other people call them bricklayers, like solid frames of brood. Great patterns, good looking queens. Now these were all from my Italians, but thankfully my wife's uncle, he's got like 150 hives around me, and he buys in 50 to 100 queens every year. So this year he bought in 50 from Bob Benny, which I think are Carniolans or Caucasian. I think they're Carnies. And he bought in another 50 or so Russians from Honeybee Genetics in California. He always buys queens from them every year. So I'm noticing most of my queens still look pretty Italian, but I got quite a few of them that are starting to be these smaller black queens, or they're pretty black queens. So they're a lot harder to see actually than the Italians. So I think I'm pretty good at seeing queens now, but these dark queens take it to the next level. But I am very glad for that, because I'm getting a lot more genetic diversity in here. Some of you guys were worried about me, inbreeding, having bad, needing fresh genetics. But with having a neighbor that buys in 50 to 100 queens every year, I don't think that should be a problem. That might be a problem if I start selling him my queens. So I went from 6 hives to 50 or 47 laying queens in just 3 months. 3 months and a week, 2 weeks, a little over 3 months. I don't know, I'm pretty tickled. I think, I was saying earlier that I thought I was going to be able to have a lot more by now. If I would have had comb, a lot more comb, I could have done a lot better. That's what I was not taking into account. They're having to draw out so much foundation that it really sets them back. No, probably, I want to try to get to at least 100. I still have like 4 or 5 hives there I have not split out of, and they're really strong, or some of them are really strong. So after these come back, if all these splits make it, it'll be around 75. Then I'll only have 25 more to get to 100. So that's my new goal, is to get to 100 hives by end of the year, which, not by end of the year, in another month. Because our first frost is April 15th, and then the goldenrod will be done. Well, I'm pretty tickled how my bee venture is going. You guys have had some great comments, some great tips. Thank you guys for that. Keep those comments coming, and I'll try to do a better job of keeping these videos coming. That's another thing that's a lot of hard work, is making videos. So see you next time. Thanks for watching.